my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I did not see you there. Wow, what a pleasure seeing you. You read the title today, Music Theory, made simple as possible, right? But before that, a quick note. My new single, I really appreciate that you guys have been blowing it up and loving it. It's awesome. If you want to check it out, link in description. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, all that stuff and more, right? But speaking of that, I've had a few people ask me, how do I get my stuff on Spotify and all these streaming services, right? And for that, I answer Distrokid for only $20 a year, right? I'm able to get it on pretty much all streaming platforms, unlimited. There's no add-on fees. And the reason I'm saying this is because they sponsored this video. But without that, I'd still be using them because they're the best service out there. You can even get it on TikTok if you want people doing little dances to your video, right? And it's as easy as the $20 a year. And you just go here, just upload it like you would any other platform like SoundCloud, album cover, song title, audio file. It's super self-explanatory, super easy, and it's awesome. That's what I use. Get it on all those platforms. But another thing, if you go to distrokid.com/VIP/bunting, you get a 7% discount on your first year, which is awesome. Save money, live better. Bunting. Link in description for all that stuff and more. But back to business, right? Music theory. What the heck is going on with that? First things first, when you're going to write a song using music theory, the first thing you want to do is determine the key of your song. Okay, what key do you want? What vibe do you want? And all that. So generally, if you want a happier vibe, you go for the major. If you want a darker, spookier vibe, heavier vibe, it's always minor, right? And all these letters, which one do you pick, right? Which red letter do you pick? And for that, I say the closer to F, the better. Of course, you want more variation. Sometimes you want it deeper. Sometimes you want it higher. But the reason F is right here. The strongest subs hit at F. For whatever reason, that's just subs resonate the best on most systems on the note F on that frequency. So on that note, on that note, you get it. Let's choose F. So let's look at our notes here. So we have F, G, G sharp, A sharp, C, C sharp, D sharp, F. Now, right away, we're going to head into our DAW of choice, Ableton in this case. Well, Ableton, yeah. And let's just lay down all those notes. So let's find our F. There's F, G, G sharp, A sharp, C, C sharp, D sharp, F. Okay, now we have every note there. And if we hit fold, wow, we can't write out a key. It's beautiful, right? But we don't want this big hit at the beginning. So for that, I'm just going to highlight all those and hit my little left arrow. Now they're hiding. It's our little secret chord, secret scale, right? Now, as for melodies, I'd really just recommend experimenting, right? So how about we just go in. That could be a melody right there. And one thing you do notice, I am doing on kind of even divisions of the beat, right? So every little beat. That's pretty much the most consistent way to get good melodies is to stay on beat. But if you want, you can, put a little note in between. Put little notes in between. You see, it's hit or miss. But generally, start off with something simple and then just edit it to make it more complex, just like with all arrangement, But really experiment with this. And one thing to keep in mind that your root note, the bottom note, the name of the scale, in this case F, is where it's going to sound most resolved. So if you're playing notes and they're alluding to heading back to this bottom note or this top note, then it sounds better, So it's further away from the note here, and then this brings it back to the beginning. Or we can move it up here so you can really hear it. Dun, 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 dun. You see how that's a little moment of tension, but this resolves it nicely. That's a universal thing with all music, especially theory, right? But yeah, that's a little melody. It's super simple. Just mess with it. It'll get more intuitive, easier over time. Now, let's say we wanted to add some chords to that. You know, just richen up the harmonies, add some thick layers, right? So all we're going to do for that is we're going to take one of the notes from a melody, right? In this case F, since it's the first note. I just duplicated it. And we're just going to count 1, 2, 1, 2. Right? Now you can stop at any amount of 1, 2s. See, this jazz chord, right? The more extensions you add, the more 1, 2s you add, the more jazzier it's going to be, basically, right? But a lot of the times you can just stop at 2 or 3. And as you see, that's a chord. And how about this second chord here? I'm just going to take it and just drag it somewhere else. And because it's always an interval of 2 apart within the scale, that means we can just drag it and it still sound good. And let's just move it one more time for the second run through. And what do you know? We have chords going, we have harmonies going, and all that. Now, if you want a bass line to go with this, all you need to do is just pretty much take the bottom note of your chords. Okay, as my little mic cup falls. That's why you don't use a mic cup, right? Take the bottom note. Let's just stretch it out, and you're pretty much solid. And we'll just copy this to the other one. Of course, we want it a bit lower, so I'm gonna Control J, consolidate all these, and just hold Shift and press the down arrow key. Oops, and it's bass note now. If you want, you can also mess with these, but let's not. Now, if you want to get a little more advanced with your harmonies and stuff, so of course I said you can add jazz stuff, right? But let's just unfold this, and we're just going to duplicate this with Control D and highlight it on top. We're just matching those root notes together, and we could do this again and again to extend as far as possible, right? We're just matching up those Fs. Now we click fold, and now all of a sudden we have way more room to work. So let's just take our main F chord. So I'm just going to copy that, paste it here. Right, there's F. And if you notice, we can just extend this. We can keep going. 1, 2. Now it's jazzy, right, which is cool, and all that. But stay away from jazz land. It gets scary. Just kidding. Do what you want. But as you see, we have these 3 notes here, and they repeat up here and up here. They're the same notes, just higher and lower. So for one, you can just have them hit to get a bigger chord, right, for some fatty supersaws or something. Or something you can do is just pick and choose what notes you want to use. So maybe I don't want this F, I don't want this G sharp, I don't want this F, and I want this G sharp. That's it. Now it's the same chord, it's still an F chord, but it's what's called an inversion of it. In this case, the first inversion, right, which is just because, yeah, whatever. But you can just use this to switch up your chords, to spice up your chords, get more interesting voicings than your typical stuff. And you can do the same treatment to this, right? Let's just duplicate this and then lay down this chord. And how about we just get the C up here, get the G sharp up here. Now we have thicker, more interesting chords that go better together, right? So that's a little extra advanced thing for you. Another kind of advanced thing, especially for melodies and bass lines, is, so just unfold this, right? And what we're going to do, we're going to add a little half step, just one little note above and below. And let's fold it back up. And if we use a melody with draw a melody using these notes, right, these little half steps, you'll notice it changes the vibe again. It gets a little. It's very spooky like. So if you're going for some heavy vibes or some spooky vibes, definitely add in those little half steps and mess with it. It especially goes hard with some bass. So let's just do this. And you hear this in a lot of bass music. This half step is super common. Let's do it like this so it's even more obvious. And let's just make it more obvious by actually adding a bass sound. Okay, why? I don't know why it's not. Oh, because it's not sustaining. Let's just add an envelope. Alright, for some fun, just add a bunch of OTTs. But as you see, that's hard as heck, just with some OTTs and all that. But this isn't a sound design video. But that goes to show you the stanky vibe you can get by adding little half steps to minor. However, for major, I wouldn't recommend using half steps. You can experiment with it, but the dark vibe doesn't fit as well in the major, right? And that's that. So that's as much as we're going to do for MIDI, right? But let's say you have this beautiful loop, right? And we're just going to get rid of this so we can actually hear our beautiful loop. And let's say we wanted to add some samples on top of that, right? Samples that are somehow going to be in key magically. So let's just... Let's start off with just an 808, okay? Let's get an 808, and let's say, here, a lot of samples are already key labeled, right? But some aren't. And if they aren't, I'll show you that in a minute. But we have like 808 in C. It does not slap, because it's not in key. How do we fix that? Okay, well, if you go in the sample here, you can transpose it. And you can just mess with where it's transposed until it sounds right, basically. And you can compare it side by side with notes to get that matching. That's one way to do it. The other way is to know the key of your song, right? So in this case, F. And let's unfold so you can see everything. And let's see, so that 808 is in C, so here's C, and how far is F from C? So let's just count down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So C is 5 semitones or steps away from F. So that means, so our 808's down here, our key is up here, we just have to move this up 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get the idea, right? And if you wanted to match the next note, you could just go in 1, 2, 3. Let's tune it up 3 more. And here, just like so on and so forth, right? So that's basic sample tuning, okay? But let's get an acapella so I can show you where it gets a little trickier, right? So I get those goosebumps every time. First of all, let's get this on time. He happens to say time at the beginning of the beat. So if you count this, I get those goosebumps every time. 1, 2, 3, you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make. There's strong and weak beats, right? You want the strong beat to line up with the big numbers on the grid, like 1. And he just happens to say time on a strong beat, so I'm going to line that up. You come around, yeah. But sure, it might be lined up on the grid and kind of rhythmically alright, but where's the key? How are we going to find the key? So let's just find the key by going in here, right? Let's just disable this with 0. And we're just gonna you come around, yeah. You ease my mind. Just hit random notes until it sounds right. Just one note at a time. You come around, yeah. You ease my mind. You make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, yeah. You come around, yeah. You ease my mind. You make everything feel fine. And it just happens. I got lucky, and that note sounded right to me. If you don't have a MIDI keyboard, you can kind of match it up just with MIDI in the DAW. But that means that note we found was E. Okay, now if we go back into our little MIDI, where's E? E is only 1 step below F. So that means this is in the key of E. You come around, yeah. Because that's what sounded the best with it on its own. So if you wanted to get to F, we know it's only 1 step away. So let's tune this up 1. Okay, and here we go. Let's on solo.
yeah. You come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, yeah. You come around, yeah. You ease my.
It's in key. Not quite on time, but as for time, I recommend just tweaking this until it sounds right. You know, worry about their strong beats and get them matched up.
You make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, yeah. You come around, yeah. You ease.
Just because I'm matching these big transients up with the beat more or less, whatever that means, it sounds right.
Worry about those.
And that applies for all samples. You know, if you had a different sample other than acapella, you still want to find the note where it sounds best at, and that'll basically be the key of the song, and go in here, transpose from there, right? As with all this stuff, experiment, especially with the rhythms. You know, you can lay down a simple beat just on the grid, but you can go in like going like this, going crazy with the metronome. You see, that gives it a bit more of a groove. Still keeps the same notes, just splitting up the rhythm. Just think of it like drums, right? And here's one final tip for your ears, right? If you're really having a hard time writing a solid riff for your bass, right, with notes in mind, let's just go in, get another operator. Okay, get a saw wave since it's nice and loud. So we're trying to write a bass riff. Okay. But we can't find good notes even using the right scale and everything. Or all of a sudden the groove is gone when we add notes. Look, forget notes. This is how you write a strong riff. Forget everything I said. Don't listen to me. Except listen to me now. Let's just treat it like drums. Add a flow. And you see, treating it like a percussion instrument, because bass really is percussive a lot of the times. We have a nice flow going, right? All you need to do is just tweak notes a bit. If you want a bit more tension in certain parts, just move them to a different note in the scale. If I move it up, you can hear it better. And it's that simple. You know, I think worry about the rhythm first is much more important for bass music, because so much of it really is only a one note, you know, a vast majority of it. Freeform bass musicians have it harder, right? But yeah, that's one easy way to go about it. But obviously, all this theory is super simplified, but in the end, it's all about your ear. You have to trust your ear. This just gives you a nice basis to work off of, right? So, hope you guys liked the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more like this. But this video might have been confusing. This was different from most of my videos, and music theory isn't our strong suit as producers a lot of the time. But on that note, ask questions in the comments. That's what I'm saying, right? And if you want this project file and more on my video project files, support me on Patreon, link in description, buntingmusic.com. You can get lessons from me for theory, production, sound design, anything you want. buntingmusic.com, also sample packs. And as always, yeah, stay creative. Sign up for Distrokid, link in description. No matter. It's a banger, bro. Trust me. Everyone else agrees. It's a banger. But that's that. Hope this made sense. It's your boy Bunting. Stay woke, stay creative, and peace out.